Hi, Sam.
Okay. I can't hear.
Yeah, I can't hear Sam either. Is anyone else able to hear Sam? No? Okay, good.
No.
At least it's not just me.
Welcome, everyone.
There we go.
It is December 7th at 3:32. Apparently, this system works better when I have my headphone and microphone on. So who is to know? We're going to give one more minute for Ginger Ruff to join us, and then we'll formally begin with our agenda and introductions.
Did we get an agenda? I'm just having trouble finding it.
So on the document that's called, that master document that I sent out, on page 6 of that document, you'll see the agenda for today's meeting.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, thank you, because that the master document only goes to 5 pages, the one that I'm seeing.
Oh, you know what? I think we added pages since that we're going to talk about, but it should have the meeting link in there. Meeting 2, go towards the end. It should have meeting 2, December 7th. Okay, here's Ginger. All right, welcome everyone. By way of formal introductions, I'm Sam Imperati. I'm the process facilitator. And I'll just call on you for a brief introduction, then we'll circle back and give Mark more time to give a more in-depth introduction as he's our newest member. So Millie.
Hi, my name's Millie. I work for Sam as his assistant, and I'm going to be supporting this subcommittee the best I can going forward.
Corey.
Hello, everyone. I'm Corey Grogan, Benton County Public Information Officer. With you from home today. I'm fighting off COVID, but I'll try to hang in there with you guys.
No, good luck with that. Mary.
Hi, my name is Mary. I'm part of the work group.
Louisa.
Hi, my name's Louisa. Also getting over COVID. Probably not going to talk too much.
We can have a subcommittee with Corey and Louisa to compare notes. Okay, Marge.
COVID war stories.
Marge Pock. I'm on the work group, and I'm also on the SWAC.
Okay, Ginger.
Hi, Ginger Richardson. I am the Senior Manager for Public Affairs for Public Services, and I'm on the work group as an alternate. And that's all I've got.
Thanks, Mark. Go.
Hi, I'm Mark Hankles, and I am a Benton County resident. And anyway, glad to join y'all. I don't know what I'm going to say.
Well, just give us a little bit background, what are you doing, have you done for a living, and what's your interest in this process?
Well, I teach public policy and administration up at Western Oregon University. And so I live in the Lewisburg area, and I drive past the landfill every day almost. And I have many friends that live up in that area. In fact, that's really my home area of the valley.
Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate the additional perspective here. All right, the agenda is the introductions, which we've just done. I'll review the scope. I'll have Corey talk about what have been the default Benton County practices for public involvement, public engagement. I'll talk briefly about the copyright and work product issues that have been raised. We'll talk about the history component, next steps. We'll talk about next steps for the other elements. We'll plan for our December 15th work group report out. We'll set our regular meetings and then adjourn. So that in a nutshell is that. I'm going to share my screen so that folks I don't have to go through great detail, but I do want to go over this document to see if this is.
Sam, I think your audio cut out. Oh, your screen looks like it's black right now.
Oh boy. Could be a bandwidth problem.
I don't know how important it is. Could you like just email it to someone else that has more bandwidth and have them share it as a workaround?
Well, we lost Sam and Amelia, I think.
Folks, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you,
Yes.
Sam.
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can he not hear us?
I would go to test your speaker and audio and you can change the.
Where is it?
Go to the,
This?
no, the microphone, there you go. So test speaker. Or yeah, I'll try that one. Okay, they can. hear
You can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. We had a bandwidth problem apparently. And so I apologize for that. Let me share the screen.
Hey, Sam, this is Corey. Quick question for you.
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you can hear us.
yeah. All right, let me share screen here and go over this. So the charge, to get everyone up to speed and to confirm, what I was trying to say before I cut out is this is the document that we will be using, like we're using in the other subcommittees, to track our progress. Ultimately, it will be an appendix to the full Benton County Talks Trash report. And it is the document that I sent out in the last day or two. And we have since updated it with some new information, and you'll get a new version sometime tomorrow. But our charge is
to create a general landfill history, develop protocols for timely and broad distribution of the CUP, community outreach, education, and frequently asked questions, both for the end of BCTT, for the CUP, and for the SMMP. And then report out for the executive summary. So that's our overall charge. What this does is to show all of our members and facilitators. Here is the link to the BCTT Subcommittee website, which will be the one-stop shopping place for all of our documents, plus the meeting notices for upcoming meetings as they go forward. And then that's new from the document you have, because I just got that this morning. And then here are all of the documents that may be relevant. And again, like I say, we'll send this out later tonight, tomorrow. But all the documents that have been accumulated to date on this topic for ease of reference, they'll also appear on the website. And then basically, what we'll do is show what happened at each meeting. So here was the agenda for the meeting. We'll note attendance at the meeting. We'll put notes as to our charge and what we discussed going forward. So that will be housed there. And then I I took Millie's summary, literally of, not a summary, it's a copy and paste of the posters that were on the wall at the open house. And that's all summarized there with how people, we had more than one response or favorable response. It was in green, so on. Then I added a post-meeting note. There was one document I didn't remember, and that is Republic sent in a chronological history. And that's there. It's also now part of the documents up above, but that happened after the meeting. And then here is, and that's where it is. And then here's the recording from the last meeting and the passcode. We're going to be shifting all these over from the account to the county's account, so you don't have to go through this passcode nonsense. And then our action items for the last meeting, which we did schedule the meeting. Millie provides merged document. That document is on hold pending the issues I'll generally speak to on copyright and work product assertions from a current member and a former member's emails. Well, and then there's no presentation for December 15 yet. Here's where the next meeting information will be, along with the agenda. It'll be there. It'll also be on a meeting invite once we get into the scheme of things. And here we are today for the agenda. So basically, and I'll stop sharing for the moment so I can see everyone's faces. So basically, one of the key pieces of information we didn't have last time, because I didn't have time to invite Corey and or Genevieve to our last week's meeting, is a general understanding of what the county's normal distribution channels look like. How does it normally go about? What are the resources available to us to get out the word? So I thought Corey could update us on that, and then we can ask questions for clarification, and I'll facilitate a discussion. So, but at least she'll start off with knowing what the default stuff is. So Corey, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Yeah, so happy to be here today, and glad to chat with you guys a little bit about this. Of course, we can get creative with how we release information, special events. That's one channel that sometimes we use things of that nature. But just for our fundamental communication channels that we use through the county, and we have been using actually we put together a communication plan for this solid waste process work group that runs in conjunction with the meetings. So some of the channels that we have are social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Nextdoor is very effective because we can reach the entire county with that. We use a program called Flash Alert, which reaches out to our media partners. We also have a media distribution partner list. And we also have public subscriber email lists that we use. One of those is for what we call our organic subscribers, which is just anybody who's interested in getting information about our county. We have about 10,000 people on that. And then we have what we call our interested parties list, and we have one of those specifically for the solid waste process work group. We have about 300 people on that. You guys have probably seen those emails that come out about the meetings. And that has been our plan, was to share information about the meetings, but also and invite the public to the meetings, but also to share links to previous meetings or other notes and things from the meetings, which you guys have probably seen. So those are kind of our fundamental. There's also the web page that we created for the group, and so we've been doing the web updates. Those are some of our fundamental channels, and we're not getting creative, but we also share information with our stakeholders. We have stakeholder lists. We can share information with them as well. And so those are some of the channels that we're using. And then as far as supporting you guys, I'm here to learn more about that, but I understand that we're really, I'm not the one creating the content. That's you guys. We're going to run that through our commissioners, I think, for approval, but that we're any information that goes out through the county channels, we'll want to review because for clarity and optics, and that we have final release authority for any information that goes out on the county channels. Other than that, I'm just here to learn more about what's going on, listen to your suggestions, and figure out if there's any other ideas where we can do a better job focusing on communication with the public.
Thank you for that. I just want to make one clarification so there's no confusion. I appreciate the county wanting to look at press releases but the actual work product of the work group is the work groups, and the board, if we need to get clarification at the next Tuesday board meeting, I will, but the board isn't going to be editing the work group work product drafts before it goes out to people.
Correct. Yeah, and I wouldn't even, I'm gonna, anything that I release on county, if leadership tells me to release something on our county channels, I'll release it. And if I'm reviewing any content, I'm not reviewing that content to make changes to the content. It would be more for how it looks or how it reads. So it's in plain language, and so it's easily consumable by the public, things of that nature. So I'm not trying to create content to release on behalf of the work group. So I think we're talking about the same thing. It's just a matter of the way that we're saying it.
Yes, and just to underscore that, so there's no confusion down the road, or if there is, we can get it resolved ASAP. For the rest of the folks on the call, as we develop the report at in the last half of December and the first half of January, you guys are going to be doing the executive summary piece. You're going to be doing a report on this public outreach work that we are doing. You're going to, and Millie and I and the subcommittees are going to be putting together the meat and potatoes of the report, and all the team has offered to, once we get it at a stage where it could be made pretty, nice formatting, pictures, and depending on what you want, a third-party clarity edit without substantive changes, to make sure it's user-friendly. we can discuss that, but they are open to doing that. But again, it wouldn't be anything substantive. It's totally the work group's domain.
Yeah, I don't want to, so yeah, I want to explain this right. I don't want to try to have any effect on what the content is. I just want to make sure if we're releasing something on behalf of the county, I want to make sure that it looks nice and that it's easy for the public to understand. That's all.
So questions for clarification and or comments for Corey from any member of the subcommittee? Mark?
We're a public meeting when we meet, so we're open to the public, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the only other thing that would be a concern would be, well, at least immediately, is timing. I didn't realize how accelerated the timeline was when I signed up for this thing. But if there's much delay, then this stuff won't get out necessarily fast enough for public response. So that just has to be considered.
So one of the agenda topics that got added is out there in the last meeting, or maybe it was a meeting before last, I put together a work plan, a work group and subcommittee work plan that laid out a timeline for for SWAC/DSAC to review it, for the planning commission to do it. This morning at a staff meeting with the county, they also agreed to have a public feedback a survey on the work group report. And right now, in this updated schedule, which I was literally working on before I got on this call, it is looking at that after our January 19th work group meeting, and we will be sending out the report to SWAC/DSAC, to the Planning Commission, and creating a public input feedback survey via SurveyMonkey. That will be going out on January 24th. So January 19th meeting, January 24th, the results of that work group meeting get updated into the draft. It goes out to everybody, and then the SWAC/DSAC, the Planning Commission, and public comment period will open up, closing on or about February 10th. I'm still in the I haven't got this morning today to the part about what are the questions going to be asked of the public. There'll definitely be an open, one of the SurveyMonkey questions will be, please provide any additional information, any comments, and improvement, what have you. Sort of a classic open-ended question at the end. And I will run by you the more targeted questions once I get them figured out, which will probably be tomorrow.
So Sam, I have a quick question. So when you put that survey together, you're gonna need help with outreach for the surveys specifically?
Absolutely.
Okay. We just did that for a survey that we did for a different program. So we have a communication plan that we can refer to as a template for that.
If you could send that to me and I'll distribute it to the folks on this call, that would be divine.
Okay. Yeah, and it's kind of just similar to what I went over. We just use all of our communication channels. There's two that I actually forgot to mention, which are our external newsletter and our internal newsletter. And our external newsletter actually goes out to our organic subscribers list, which I mentioned, that has the largest following. So we can push the information out that way, but I can send you guys some information about how we can push that out.
So I'll get Louisa is up next, but while you're doing it, this will be the work group subcommittee's call, but my suspicion is that we're going to want that sent out to the world, and so channels, exposure the possible. People get multiple copies of it. That's all the Louisa.
Well, since Sorry, Corey, maybe you've been at the other meetings. I don't know. But a lot of people were complaining that they didn't get information about the original work group. And so I'm guessing you guys used all those channels to tell about the work group we have going now. So something is missing in there that we need to figure out to add to that system, it sounds like.
Yeah, and this is the tricky part about strategic communications is we sometimes put forth our best efforts and then it seems like people still don't get the information. So I'm open to suggestions. We have sent information out to the media via flash alert. We've used our newsletter. We use both of our subscriber lists. We've sent it out on social media multiple times. We've asked partners to share it. We've posted it on the website. So with that said, and we've done it pretty consistently, especially we really ramped it up once the first meeting started. We've been sending consistent updates out the whole time, and we're going to continue to do that. But yeah, with that said, I would, if you guys have suggestions about how we can do a better job reaching more people, I'm open to listen to that.
And I'm going to call on Marge next. Take it away, Marge.
Oh, okay. Well, at the last meeting, Ginger Ruff suggested that you might do a mailing, an entire snail mail mailing, because people will see that. I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people who aren't on the various lists that you have. Well, you have a list of 10,000. There are 50,000 people in this city, just in the city. I don't know how many in the county.
It's about 100, I think, in the county.
Yeah. Okay. So you're reaching 10%.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. So I actually do know that we have the capability to do that, and I know how to execute that. We have a contract with a vendor who can help us with that. The issue with that is budget. So that I'm not saying that we can't do it, but I need to find out if we can find the funds to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something we can look into.
Do you have any idea how much that would cost to mail to most of the people? And how would you get that mailing list? Would you get it from property owners, renters?
You get it from the United States Postal Service.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually open source public information.
Okay.
And the vendor will do all of that for us.
Uh-huh.
I do have a rough idea about how much it will cost because I've already kind of been looking into this. And we've done it in the past, actually. Before I was here, I found out that we did it during COVID. The cost, though, depends on the type of mailer that it is. So if it's just a postcard, it would be less because you have to factor in also the design and printing costs and the mailing cost. So if it was just a postcard, it would be less than like a trifold or a booklet. And I don't know for sure, but I think we might be able to do it for around $5,000, but that's not that. I'd have to double check on that. So
Yeah.
Is there a way, the other suggestion came up, is there a way to put it in a bill that already goes out to, like the sewer bill or the trash bill or something that's already in the works and add a stuffer or whatever you would call it?
yeah, that is possible. We were considering doing that, or we do that with our yearly tax information. That's already gone out. So as far as other opportunities to do that, I'd have to look into it, but it is possible. I think it would be more effective to do it as a standalone. It'd be more costly, but I think it would be more effective probably to do it that way.
I think the postcard's a good idea because I'm
do
honest, terrible about opening my mail, but I always see postcards.
Yeah.
I agree.
This is something that I'm going to need to bring to our county administrator so he can run it through the commissioners to see if we would want to approve that funding for that because it is kind of spendy. Again, the 5,000 is a rough estimate, so I need to double check on the cost as well.
Say. Respond to the survey, you get 5% off your next garbage, right? Could you would do that?
Can't hear. It's not clear. Yeah.
Yeah, while we're waiting for them, I'm glad you brought that up, Marge, because that was actually kind of on my radar. We had been talking about that for something else and it came up and then it kind of fell off the radar a little bit. So I think it's.
If you're
really
talking
nothing.
about for something else, maybe you could double duty it.
Yeah. I don't know if that would be a good idea for us. We want to be clear on with our messaging and the way that we do that. So, but it is a good thought. You know, it'd be a good way to save money. So, yeah, that's a good thought too.
But you kind of have to use both sides of the postcard. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you guys thought of as far as outreach for this that we
Well,
haven't been
Sam,
doing?
your mic says mute on the screen. So are you muted?
I actually did want to mention one thing, which is Mary Parmigiani is a high school student. And so she has an excellent channel that maybe she could tell us more about. I mean, that's a channel that we really want to include because this is an environmental based situation that we're dealing with. And who would be more interested in that than Mary and others in her cohort.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, I was wondering what kind of like youth involvement you were thinking of as far as the outreach, or like if you planned for that or something along those lines.
Yes, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, as far as specific outreach or youth involvement for this specific project, I haven't really thought about that. I'd be open to suggestions about how we could do that. I don't know if that would be through a presentation or some way that we can have a call to action. It's just something that I would need to think about a little bit more and see if we have the bandwidth to actually follow through with it.
And maybe you could go with a connection to the school district.
Yeah.
To teachers or school district. I don't know I don't know a lot about how a school is organized, but
Yeah.
what do you think of that, Mary? Do you think that would be effective?
Yeah, I would say I think going through schools and like more specifically high schools is probably a good like place to start thinking because I feel like those people are the people that would be most likely to be interested in this issue as far as youth involvement.
Do you have any other examples of other kinds of organizations or other parts of the government that had used a technique like that to communicate with high schools? Mary?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Nothing like super notable that I can think of right now, but I can probably, if I thought about it for a little bit longer, I might be able to come up with something.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
I know students in Oregon, I think they have to I don't know if they still do this, but they have to do graduation projects. And when I was working at the Office of Emergency Management, we would work with the high schools to see if students wanted to do preparedness oriented projects.
Ah, yes.
So that could be a potential option. We definitely have the contacts at the school district. I just, based on timing and bandwidth and the effectiveness of the outreach, we'd have to really find a good way to streamline our efforts. I think that would be the trick.
I just think that would be an incredibly important group of folks to connect with.
Yeah, or even college students as well.
Yes, I agree. College students as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna try to.
I feel like I'm in the.
We're going to be echoing for the next 10 minutes, Sam.
At least we got our comedic relief.
So, Mark, I just want to give you this as an example of how competent a facilitator I am. How's that working so far? I mean, the rest of the folks that have been suffered enough already, they know, but I just wanted to make sure you knew what you're dealing with. Yeah. All right, so we've got all that down on that sort of the agenda item about Benton County practices and what they're doing, but I wanted to do last call from anyone to give feedback or suggestions for Corey on channels we might want to be looking at here at our next meeting.
Corey, just the GT is part of your regular, the one that you have the regular media connection with, I presume?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that's something I meant to mention that I didn't. Is they're they're in our subscriber list and they're on our media list, but they're actually also on our list that we have just specifically for the solid waste process work group. So we have Alex Powers, Cody Mann, and their editor is on there. And so is the advocate and a couple other folks, I think.
But there wasn't like an advertisement in the GT that said this work group is going to start, this is what it's doing, nor was there an article published.
Well, we
I don't think.
we did push the information out. So to the first part, the advertisement, if we didn't do that, yes, we could have done that. So that's something we need. As far as the article goes, we could have written an editorial, but we did give them the information. So then it's on them whether or not they want to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think they fired just about everybody who.
Yeah, there's been a lot of drastic changes there, and they've had a new editor, I think, for a little over a year now, and so it's just a transition in philosophy as part of it.
You're kind.
Yeah, no, we've been working to establish good relationships with the Advocate and Corvallis at times, and all of KZI, all of our local media, and it's been working pretty good. But we do push out a lot of information proactively that I think is important information for the public to have, and so I do feel like they should be sharing more of that as public service. So that's something that we'll continue to ask them to do.
Yeah.
Some of it they have been sharing, but not as much as I feel they should.
All right, Louisa.
Were we wanting to connect with the other counties or people in the other counties? And I don't know, that's, I mean, wouldn't be Corey's thing, but. 'cause
Yeah,
it's not-
Just by way of background on that piece, early on during my assessment and deciding who was going to be on my recommendation list, there was a discussion, which I'm trying to recall in the moment, while we wanted the other two counties that we have on now to participate, but they're participating ex officio. And there was a real desire, so that they're in the loop, especially come SMMP time. But there was a real motivation by a fair number of folks to deal. Am I still garbled? Testing 1, 2, 3.
It's not too
Okay, so
bad.
Louise, I don't know what else to do here, folks.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to speak clearly. There was some approach that we really wanted to focus on Benton County, Louisa, for this outreach, because the landfill's in Benton County, obviously. So it's not to preclude it. I'm just focusing more on where we pay most attention to.
If I would just say this, that makes sense, but if there is something relevant that we do want to share with other counties or other partners, we have those contacts. So I know the PIOs in other counties, and PIOs for the counties, but also PIOs for other organizations. So we have distribution lists that are able to help us share information. It's just a matter of being tactful and strategic about what information we want to share, what information we need to share.
Great. And then the final ask, Corey, you'll be sorry you brought this up, is we will need a summary of the public outreach that you have done. So is that for the report? Is that something you or Genevieve can, or if you want to talk to Darren about giving it to one of his staff, but the outward facing notifications that have happened starting with the first meeting on, we should put as part of the report.
Yeah, we can do that. When are you going to need it by?
Well, it won't really be necessary into the end of February, and we
Okay.
can plop that in at the end, or middle of February, let's call it middle of February.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. So, as we talked about last week, Daniel Reddick of the county staff put together a history document. I'm making this up, but it's roughly the end of the summer. That document went out to the work group and received feedback on it. In particular, we had former member Nancy Whitcomb submit a document loosely called History of the Landfill, or an update to the history of the landfill. Another document called Promises Made, Promises Broken. And Joel Geyer submitted two documents, and there will be on this new list of documents that you will receive at the end of this meeting. Back again, doing this from memory, I believe it was in early October, mid-October, Nancy asserted a claim that was her work product. And I discussed that with county council, who determined that because it was handed out at a work group meeting and to staff, that it was a public record. And so we attached that to the meeting minutes of that meeting, and so it's on the website and going forward. Most recently, Joel Geyer sent you all an email that everyone but Corey and Mark have seen. At least I haven't sent it to them yet. That in a nutshell basically says that he is asserting work product and copyright privileges and to that, and gave the work group several options. And again, please forgive me, I'm doing this from memory, but in essence, if you want to use any of my stuff, it has to be all of it, and you have to give me attribution. That if you want to use, and it should be used in whole, not in, in sections without his permission. And I think the third option is, you can create your own history pieces from that. I have discussed that this afternoon with County Council, and he's going to provide his guidance in the next few days, and I will pass that on to the entire work group to see if, and to let them know, here's what Joel has asserted, here's what County Council thinks. I'll ask if anyone else on the work group wants to assert anything similarly, so we can know whatever that is ahead of time and respond accordingly. But that's where we're at with regard to that agenda item. I'm happy to answer any questions I can, but at this point, I don't have a written response from County Council, so I don't know what more I can tell you. Any questions, comments, clarification?
So one of our tasks is to put together a comprehensive but shorter history. Is that what we're doing here? Is one of our major products?
Yeah, so it's a general history. And so when you have time to look at the existing documents, the initial staff version has several parts. One big part, and I'm again making this up, about 10 pages of the document is a table that has a bunch of articles from the newspaper in it. At our last meeting, the sense was that we don't want to have that kind of format or treatment, but that we would in fact take and create narratives, more of a narrative chronology and history of it. And we started to talk about the scope of that. You will see when you read Nancy and Joel's comments, they go, some of them go back in time. For instance, talking about the native lands in and around the area, and then go as most recently as an article where unfortunately a young woman's body was found in the landfill based on a homicide that happened up here in Portland area. And so, the question for this subcommittee is, is this literally a deep dive history, or is it to the most logical reader of this or audience for this, is it here are the key historical facts and chronology that you need to know to have the context for when the next CUP comes into play and when next SMMP comes into play, what have you. And we didn't quite land on the specifics, other than our primary audience is the general public, and then the new people to this process, and then to have in one place a document that, so that people who don't have to in the future go back and research all this and bring it up to speed. Because what's happened that I found out in my assessment, Mark, was that there was a lot of different points of view as to facts, be they historical or legal or factual. And the desire was to get things in one place by what we're calling common understanding. So now I'll turn it over to Louisa to take over the conversation.
I'm not taking over, but okay. So, because I wasn't at the last meeting, so we decided we're doing a narrative, or had anyone talked about like a timeline that's visual, or could we do, I mean, that might be kind of easier to wade through or to see as far as a public person or someone reading the document, just having like a historical timeline, but that's just, I was curious about that.
I leave that to the subcommittee. You're in charge of this task and presenting it to the full work group for their approval. So, if we want to segue into the next steps for that, so right now it's fair to say you will have tomorrow the documents that currently exist with the asterisks around the ones from Joel Geyer and Nancy Whitcomb. And I was hoping to get 1 or 2 volunteers to become sort of a subcommittee to start drafting something for the whole subcommittee to push against within that constraint. So Mark, is that a question or a yes, you want to volunteer?
But first, what's our timeline? And if it's reasonable for me, I'd be happy to work on that. I like writing some.
Right.
And I definitely
Mark,
think
is that a
you'd have a
question?
timeline. You'd have a timeline with the next identifying key decision moments. And then you would explain in the narrative what happened at those key decision moments according to the records.
Right, with one exception. So for instance, all the conditional use applications, all the landfill zoning changes in the area, we've got another subcommittee called the CUP subcommittee that has a chronological history of all of those documents. So if you go to the master BCTT website under CUP subcommittee, you will see an evolving document that has that stuff already in it. Likewise, in the capacity subcommittee, they are developing a chronology that says, again, I'm making this up, cell 1 came online on this date, cell 2 came online at this date, that sort of thing. So we have those pieces. What's missing is more the connective tissue from maybe a 30,000 foot, or maybe it's a 10,000 foot level to tie the rest in. So for instance, there was confusion as to when the landfill, started, who bought it, when, that sort of thing. And sort of, ownership changes, for instance, could be an example of something that should go in there in the chronology or timeline. And I'll get to when we're going to do this next. Marge, you're up.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that as far as early history is concerned, and I think it's important to at least have a few paragraphs in there about the history of Soap Creek, from the time that settlers came, the Kalapuya tribe that lived here before. And I think that's important because the landfill is positioned in a place that it is, kind of inappropriate from a historical point of view. And what I wanted to mention is that there was a paper written in 1990, I think, or maybe 1999, by a graduate student at OSU, Zybach, Z-Y-B-A-C-H. And that paper is focused on the forest industry, but there's a lot of material in there as well. There's material in there as well that gives a context of what life was like over, the past 100, 200 years before now. So that would be a source to get some information.
We also talked about a timeline, a volume. I mean, number of pages for this. So what I understood to be the thought, subject to your agreement or changing, if you want to change in the moment, was this is not a 50-page document. This is more of a 10, 20, 15, I don't know, whatever number. Part of it's going to deal with formatting. And so it could use a lot of footnotes to documents that explain more. And I'm not suggesting that, Marge, what you just cited should only be a footnote, but at a minimum, it should be a footnote that says for a more detailed history of.
Right, no, absolutely. Footnotes could be very usefully used in these cases.
Hey, Mary.
I was wondering, I was kind of going off of what Sam said, like how much we're going to focus on each part of the history of the landfill, and if we're going to focus more on like the present / like the recent history, because I feel like that might make more sense from like a member of the public who might be reading it. They might be more interested in the recent history or like the present, I guess. So I was just wondering like how we're going to distribute that, the focus on that.
Oh,
So I'm suggesting, Marge, are you volunteering to be on this writing thing or no? Or do you have a comment?
I have a comment about, to Mary, which is I was thinking that the history, the first part of the history, could probably be distilled in a half a page or a page. I wasn't thinking about really, going into detail about it. But I was going to ask her, because this might be an interesting thing to do, to say, well, how many pages do we want to devote, or what percentage of the entire thing do we want to devote, not report, but the historical part of the report. If we want it to be 10 pages, then how many pages should we devote to each of what subject?
And I guess that I think getting the first draft of something will give us a better look, because I think substance is more important than style. Please forgive me, Corey, but it's sufficient information that they know, and I don't want to artificially suggest a limitation on you, because it's you're the ones that get to drive.
I think that's true, but if you don't make it consumable for the public, they're not going to see it.
Right. So I think there was a general consensus last time, and I'll get Mark next. There was a general consensus last time that this shorter versus longer. We hadn't defined short means a maximum of X pages or a minimum of Y pages. I think we're a little premature on that discussion. But I think generally it is a introductory piece with resources footnoted or end noted, or whatever you decide, so people who want a deeper dive into a particular topic know where to get it. Mark.
I would just say start with the draft and make it smaller. I mean, not with a huge draft, obviously, but I think as far as proportions devoted to specific sections, I think we'll get a sense for that when we see it kind of all put into one piece. In my experience with writing, that's a better way to go than to start thinking you have 20% or 1 page or something like that. It's harder, but better to cut into what we see as appropriate when we see the whole.
All right. So,
and I will volunteer. I will volunteer.
Okay, so we've got Mark and Marge. So apparently your first name needs to begin with an M in order to be on this subcommittee.
Mary.
Mary could volunteer herself, because there's other tasks I'm about to ask for volunteers on. So, Louisa, were you volunteering or getting in the queue?
Well, I was going to volunteer, but I was going to ask you, is there what other things are coming up? But I would volunteer, but I think Marge volunteering sounds great.
No, you can go. Well,
I don't know what other things are coming up.
So let me get to that, and we can also, this wasn't last call on volunteers. You can,
okay.
You can.
I mean, is there a way we can somehow encourage, I mean, I don't understand why people would share the history and everything they did and then not want to share it. But I mean, I'm sure it's made more complicated than I really want to know anyway. But is there a way to kind of reestablish and smooth that relationship out so we could maybe use the information, or you're going to work on that?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is get the county council's advice, and then I'm going to send an email to the work group, and this topic will be on the December 15th agenda as how we're going to manage this. And I don't want to even begin to predict the results of that conversation. Yes, sir, Mark.
Timeline.
Yeah, that was going to be my next.
Before I move to something else, I need to know what the timeline is.
Okay, so tomorrow at 3:30 is fine. Alternatively, absolutely, we would need this for the January 19th meeting. A good solid draft of the 19th, and so we would probably need it the week before, so for the subcommittee to vet. I don't know if the subcommittee is going to be meeting between December 15th and the end of the year. That's our last agenda item. But we absolutely would have to have a subcommittee approved document to send out the week of the 12th, January 12th, a week before the January 19th. Does that seem doable?
Well, I haven't looked at the material. I think I could probably get it done by January. Well, working with Marge, I think if we shared it out, we could probably have a draft to circulate to this committee by the 9th.
And let's circle back to that once we get the next subcommittee meeting dates too. So here are the other tasks for which see who wants to volunteer to be doing the drafting of this. So as I mentioned at our first meeting, and I'll recap, especially for folks that weren't able to attend that one. When I did the assessment last time, there was feedback that the broad community, the neighbors, outside of the narrow community that were in government, did not know about the CUP filing for the expansion in a timely fashion, and that it was worked internally between Republic and staff, and that at some point all that information was made public, and because of the clock in the land use law of how many days they have to issue a decision by the county commissioners, if it gets to that, starts to run, that there was no time and no opportunity to be heard and no opportunity to prepare in the same level of detail they would have been able to had they known from the jump. The legal subcommittee is going to be providing to me for transmittal to you a document that says, here are the legal parameters, here are the laws, here are the minimum. This subcommittee's job, using my terms, is to say, okay, we understand the minimum. What's the recommended involvement, outreach, timeline that you are going to suggest to the work group, to suggest to the board, to agree now as to how we're going to handle the next CUP application, which is probably going to be in the spring of 23. Equally, so that's the big thing there for number two. I'll give you the other one that we need to work on in the interim. The other one is this process is wrapping up. And so we should have a final report a final report done at our March 16th meeting. And so it would also be working with Corey to create a communications outreach plan to let people know what we're doing over the first 2.5 months, 3 months of 23 with regard to Benton County Talks Trash. Give them a preview of what the communications outreach involvement plan will be for the next CUP. And finally, to give them input on the SMMP, and that will begin probably early 23, maybe in January or February, where they send out an RFP to get the subject matter consultant or consultants on board to stand up that whole separate SMMP process. So it's all about getting that going. March.
The SMMP, I thought would be, that part would be completed in March.
Our SMMP won't be completed in March.
The part of it that our work group is working on, the subcommittees.
I am hoping that the recommendation for the RFP for the SMMP is done for the January meeting, and the work group can give a
Right. Okay, that's my
down,
understanding. Yeah.
And then come end of January, early February, the county actually issues the RFP for the SMMP, ASAP, LMNOP. And so that's sort of thinking out loud what that would look like. So I basically what we're looking for are a volunteer or two that's going to take the legal stuff and superimpose on it, my words, best practices or recommendations for involvement and outreach for the next CUP. And this could go from when Republic asked for a formal pre-application meeting with the county, to when it gets filed, to when it gets posted to a county CUP website, to when SWAC is going to meet and DSAC, and then when the planning committee, and all that laid out, so that we can be responsive to the recommendations we received during the assessment. This is the time where all the hands should go up and say, I would love to volunteer. I live to serve the county residents.
Can I ask a question about the second thing that you just explained again? I still don't totally get that. So that would be, can you explain that again, maybe a little differently?
Okay, so the default process from last time, the best I understand it, I did not do a deep dive during my assessment on this topic. I did hear complaints about the process. The complaints come in two flavors. We got notice too late, which then created not enough time to get prepared for and comment upon and present testimony against the application at SWAC and Planning Commission. And then, of course, it didn't go beyond that because Republic withdrew its appeal to the board. There are statutory timelines and provisions that already exist. I'm going to get you a memo that lays those out. What I heard during the assessment was strict adherence to the statutory requirements is not adequate for full, robust notice opportunity to be heard, involvement, etc. This subcommittee's task is to make a recommendation to the full work group for its consideration, to say to the board, here's what happened last time. We don't think that was adequate. Here are, making this up, are 7 recommendations to improve that process. That's the task. Marge.
Well, I just, it's just crossed my mind that whenever development is proposed in my neighborhood, I get a letter saying that there's going to be a hearing about it, and this is when the hearing will occur. So it seems like with respect to the franchise agreement and the prior CUP, that process did not happen for the people neighboring the landfill. And I'm just thinking that minimally should occur with anything that's a major step in this process.
Please add franchise agreements to the list on the chart.
Yeah, they're not, unfortunately, we signed one for 20 years.
Right.
Well,
So-
I think I would want to help with that.
Good. Good. And then the other one is this community education outreach on the broader sense. It's teeing up the end of BCTT, and I think we would start with that, and then a recommended communication plan of who should be contacted when, with what information about the end of BCTT, the CUP process, and the SMMP process, potentially with an FAQ document that talks about the process, not about the merits of that. But as part of the community education campaign, people don't know about these events and these processes, they won't then be able to communicate or weigh in. So we would need perhaps one other person to do that piece. And again, you'd just be drafting it for the subcommittee then to make a whole, and then all of us as a group would do that.
It seems like the last two are kind of connected, though.
Yeah.
Yes. The last one is a subcomponent, a major subcomponent of the third one. The third one adds, however, BCTT, the end of that process. Just, in other words, thinking out loud, I'm recommending in January, there's a bunch of communications to the broader public saying BCTT has been up since September. We've had X number of meetings. Here's where you can find the stuff. The draft report is going to be discussed at the January X meeting. It's going to go out to the public for comment on this date. Be looking forward to a SurveyMonkey poll on it by this date. That sort of thing.
Is Corey going to work on both of those, both of these together? I mean, both of these two, or the last two topics? Or just the third topic?
My sense is that Corey's going to opine on and supplement and then ultimately implement what we are recommending. But he's more than welcome, as far as I'm concerned, to work with whomever is going to be the subcommittee member that's going to drive the work to communicate with that person and say, here's the list of our channels. Here's our, here's how many people on all these lists. Here are the mailing postcard options. What have you.
Mark, did you have a question?
No, it was just about consolidating the FAQs with what Louisa was going to do. So that you guys address that.
So let's consolidate them. And Mary, do you have any bandwidth at all to do any of this? Maybe you could work with Louisa on that stuff.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so Louisa and Mary on items basically 2 and 3. Marge and Mark have charge 1, the general landfill history. And then we'll save the executive summary report because Millie and I will be drafting this as part of just getting something to push against together. And I see the executive summary being a project for the end of like early February, mid-February, when the whole document is coming together more. You know, it's going to be a 5-page document, so it's 5 pages in quotes, and it's going to be basically heavily cross-referenced to the body of the report with hyperlinks, and it's going to be primarily focused on the recommendations that the group did, and that could be a whole group subcommittee of all of us. So Millie will type up these notes, get you the updated stuff here by close of business on Friday. Millie is going to be working with Marge and Mark on your charge. It will be your staff support to the extent you need it and want it. Feel free to call on her for whatever you need surrounding that. And on the other two, subcommittee, 2 and 3, that's a combination of Corey, with me being the interface between the legal subcommittee and the other subcommittees. So we'll write that down as part of our notes as to who the staff support is going forward. So other than that, I think really 2 other topics remain in the 12 minutes we have left, which is what we're going to present on December 15th, which is the next work group meeting. And thinking out loud, everybody but Mark, and maybe Mark, have you listened to any of these meetings or attended any of the BCT meetings by chance?
Just the very first one.
Okay, so if you have time, certainly not mandatory, but the last one we did, you will see it's a shorter meeting because we had an open house the second half of it. But the first half was each subcommittee reporting out. So you can see what their report outs look like. They have primarily been, here's our charge, here's our membership, here's what we've worked on, and here's what we're planning to work on. Love us. This time, however, we're asking for a more in-depth report. So the questions you might be thinking about, because you're going to have about 30 to 45 minutes to engage with the work group. The things you should be doing for charges, the charges you're working on, are saying things like, we're going to do a general history on Coffin Butte. We think it's, the parameters look like this, and I'm just making these up, shorter than longer, heavily resourced or referenced for people who want to get more information. A focus on the present and going backwards in time. What do you work group think? Is that what you want? And then they might say, oh, no, we want it shorter. No, we want it longer. No, we want this or that or the other thing. But it's a way to engage with the full work group to make sure they're buying in to the subcommittee direction. In the past, the work group has been very accepting and deferential to the subcommittee's work. So be thinking about what we're going to say on December 15th, which we can finalize at next week's meeting, but specifically about what you want to engage them on. Likewise, the Louisa and Mary subcommittee can be thinking about, look at, we don't want to do the CUP the same way we did it in the fall of 21, winter of 22. We want to do it differently. What are some of the components you want to brainstorm in to add to our recommendations on top of the legally required ones with their timelines? And then we can, yeah, Mark.
So what time's this meeting, and are we all going? Are we going to say, talk like, well, I represent task 1 and this is what we envision, and Lisa represents task 2 and this is what she's doing? How's this gonna come down? And what time?
It's December 15th from 3 to 7:30. You can appear in person or via Zoom. What we've had in the past is 1 or 2 members of the subcommittee has prepared a 1-page written report that is handed out at the meeting and make an oral presentation and answers any questions. You can have 1 of you do it, 2 of you do it, all of you do it. You can have me do it, although that's my last preference because I want this to be committee driven. Marge?
Yeah, I thought you said at the last meeting that we would not be doing that at the December 15th meeting, since we have only had a chance to have a couple of meetings.
And
but you've changed your mind?
Yes, but only not in the form of a full-blown document. I think the major focus is, and Millie and I can do this part of your report out for December 15th, who you are, what's the charge, who you are, what you've done, who you're meeting. It really gets down to what are the discussion prompts or questions you want to engage the work group in a discussion around to make sure they support the tasks as you have seen them, and make any suggestions that you might ask them for suggestions. You know, do you want to see a timeline? Do you want to see a narrative? Do you want to see all these newspaper articles? Do you want it to focus more on recent versus old? You can think of the questions you're going to be asking yourself about what this report is. You can get some preliminary feedback from them on the 15th. Does that help clarify? So it's not the same big, deep thing, because you're not going to have a report ready. You're not going to have a draft or your material ready by then.
Sam, but will we have a little more guidance on what to review and such before then? Or what to start working on, I guess?
Yeah, so we're going to have a meeting next week, which we're going to schedule here in the next 5 minutes. And probably your homework between now and then is just think of, if each of you thought of 5 questions surrounding Subcommittee E's charge that you would like to get feedback on from the work group, that would be, 90% of the lift for purposes of doing the report on December 15th. So, with that said, what do your calendars look like next week?
Well, I'm out of town Tuesday and Wednesday completely. Sorry.
How about Monday?
Okay,
How
on
about-
Monday, just so you know, here are my committees. I've got 2 subcommittees on Monday already. I could do this is brutal, but for you guys, and me, but I could do anytime after 5 o'clock on Monday the 12th. So I'll just give you the options. Anytime Monday after 5 o'clock. I could do Tuesday anytime after, let's see a second. Anytime after 4:30. Wednesday, I can do anytime. And of course, unfortunately, Thursday's our meeting.
Yeah, Wednesday, I have a commitment from 4 to 6:30.
So, Mark, you said you were out when, Monday, Tuesday?
You're muted, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Tuesday, Wednesday,
Tuesday and Wednesday.
and maybe Monday
Well,
evening.
what about Monday at 5 after my other subcommittee ends?
I can do that. I accidentally unmuted myself, but
How dare you speak without being called upon?
I won't be able to do Monday at 5, but if you guys want to proceed and just keep me posted on what's going on, I'm fine with that.
Mark, does that work for you, Mary, Marge?
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah, that works for me.
I cannot commit to that. It might be that I leave on Monday, but late. But here's what I can do is I can just communicate what I'm willing to take on as responsibility. We're not actually doing any work. What we're doing is deciding how we present to the committee. And I could express what I'm willing to do and work within that, I don't know, whatever you want from there. I could probably go to that committee for a while, at least by Zoom, on the 15th, and talk about what I think, whatever March and I work out. But that's my yeah, my schedule's just messed up. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah, well, you gotta watch Marge. What Marge does is she sneaks up on you, entices you to attend, and then we only tell you at the meeting what you gotten yourself into. And it's a binding contract, Mark.
But you'll be paid well.
With that said, I want to chime in real quick and I've been meaning to say this. Thank you guys for volunteering to step up and spend your time and energy doing this stuff. I know it requires some work and you guys care about it. So just want to let you know that we appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you all. Any last call, comments, facilitator jokes?
I mean, I can do the other days too if they're later, but it sounds like we decided on Monday.
I think we should do Monday because then it gives us some room to have the document prepared and given out to the work group in advance and prepare for the Thursday meeting. Millie?
I will type up the meeting notes from this subcommittee meeting that kind of lay out the things that we're looking at going forward and clarify what people are doing with the different tasks. I'll have that to you guys tomorrow. I have a big final tonight due at midnight, so I can't get it to you this evening. But that should help establish some of what the questions will be that you guys think about for presenting to the work group on Thursday. And I also want to note that, Corey, you said that you were going to look into maybe doing those mailers and the different options with that. Is that something that you can kind of look into this week?
I can start looking into it this week. I don't know if I'll have any final answers on whether or not we can actually do it, but I can definitely look into how much it costs and present it to our county administrator to present it to the commissioners to see if it's something that we want to budget for.
Awesome. Just as long as we get the ball rolling, because it seemed like everybody kind of liked that idea of doing some sort of hard copy that people receive.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's just if we can secure the funding, then that could work well.
Mark?
I gotta go. I'm sorry, but I look forward to working with you in the future, and we'll be in touch. I'll keep up with whatever communications we're doing. Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a nice evening.
Marge, did you have? Marge, did you have something, or are you just waiting?
No. I was just saying goodbye.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.